After a bit of a flat move during the week, we had a big move on Friday going into a short trading week. Good evening, my fellow Riz Elite members and all of our subscribers here on YouTube. Welcome to our Elite webinar. Now, of course, if you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't done so, then do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Go ahead and click that little bell icon located right next to it so that you get notified every time we upload a new video here on the channel, because we are going into an interesting week and we've got lots to talk about. So let's get started here, as we usually do, talking about the S&P 500. So as you can see, we kind of had a bit of a run up here going into, let's see here, late June, basically. We had this big push here on the 20th. We came up, made a new all-time high, and then pushed back down. And then we're starting to kind of grind up slowly until Friday, and we had quite a lot of movement actually on Friday. Big run up on, PCE numbers and, core inflation, things like that. We had some big economic data that came out, made a new all-time high on the S&P 500 and promptly lost it again. So we've kind of double tapped this 5510 area twice on the S&P 500 now as we continue in this uptrend. We are just slowly grinding towards the upside, but definitely a big rejection there on Friday and quite a sell-off going into the close. Now, we've got a lot of things going on this week that we need to be aware of. There's definitely some economic data points we're going to take a look at here. But the biggest thing to remember is that we are going into a short trading week. Thursday is the 4th of July, which if you are an American or of 4th of July, that is our Independence Day. So the markets will be closed here in the United States. That is not necessarily true of other international markets, but for the U.S. markets, they will be closed on Thursday. And going into a short trading week like that, we often see a lot less action. People are basically, making sure that they've got their vacation set up, and, trading volume typically is a little bit lower. Now, that's not to say we won't have some big moves, but it is interesting when we look at the economic dates coming up this week, because they did some interesting plays around with that, if you ask me. So, really kind of a big move Friday, and that was about it, honestly. The rest of the week was pretty muted, pretty flat, just kind of this slow incremental push, melt upwards, I guess is what you could call it. And then a big move on Friday with a hard rejection of that all-time high. We are looking really close to being overbought here on the RSI, so we are going to be keeping an eye on that. Definitely something to keep an eye on going into the week. So let's take a look here at the different market sectors and see what's going on. Obviously, a big sell-off in tech last week. We talked about that. A bit of a rebound this week, going into, this. And honestly, with all that movement on Friday, we barely saw any movement in the tech sector at all, which is kind of interesting. So, we had this big ramp up, to almost plus 23% on the year on tech. Sell off here a bit, back down to about 18%, and then we bounced back up, ended the week here right around this 20% mark. Communications is right behind it, up at 18% on the year, and the S&P 500 itself is up over 15% on the year, and we are just closing out Q2, which is hard to believe because I kind of feel like we just started Q1 just a couple days ago, and it's definitely not the case anymore. We are seeing a very nice move up here in consumer discretionary, this very nice, slow grind towards the upside, while the other indices, though underperforming the S&P 500, are all pretty close. We got financials, energy, utility, consumer staples, and healthcare, all in this area between this +5 and +9% essentially. And then, of course, the big underperformer so far in the year has been real estate. That has been kind of the go-to so far this year and has not disappointed as of yet. We did have kind of this nice run up here in April, but still just can't get over that zero line at this point. So, definitely interesting to see that, again, we are seeing this disparity with tech being the front runner, with those emerging growth companies and just growth companies in general, really kind of propping the market up at this point. So, of course, NVIDIA's in there, all the chip makers, all the tech companies really kind of propping up the market right now. Let's take a look here at oil and gold. So, we had this interesting move in gold, and it has really been respecting this trend line very nicely. kind of this move up here since about the December of last year. And then, a bit of a sell off going here into the summer months. And we started to recover here in June, a very nice move up in oil. And if you were in Elite, you were able to capitalize on that because we did take a trade on that, and that was closed profitably. So congrats if you took that one. But yeah, oil just kind of definitely made a very nice move up, a bit of a consolidation move this week, staying below this trend line currently. We will have to see if we're able to push back over that or not this week. My guess is no, but don't quote me on that because you never know what might happen in the market these days. But if I had to put money on it, which I'm not, and I'm not suggesting that you do, I'm thinking we're going to kind of see mostly muted price action this week for the most part because, again, short trading week, Independence Day coming up here in the United States, and I think Friday especially is going to be a pretty boring day because people are going to take that extra day off to have that 4-day weekend. That includes floor brokers and market makers and stuff like that. So I think we're just not going to see a lot of action, honestly, on Friday with that time off. So I think we're going to see some muted action here, especially in gold as well. Gold has been chopping around quite, rather volatile for gold. Usually you expect more of, kind of these type of moves where we're just kind of moving slowly, but really just chopping up and down. It feels like every day on gold, holding right around this $2,300 an ounce mark very tightly. We not want to get below it. There's 2,300 right there. And we're basically stuck between 23 and 2,400. That's basically where we are with the gold. We're range bound between those two areas. We'll have to see if we can get another move up or if we actually do start to see some, selling in that sector to bring the price of gold down. But so far, gold still, holding these gains from this parabolic move, which, is important. What you usually see when you see these big parabolic moves is you get that big push up and then you get some consolidation. And if you can consolidate and hold these levels, typically a rather bullish sign that you may get another leg up later. Now, that, of course, is with securities. We're talking about commodities here with gold. So things don't always necessarily play out that way, but it is a pattern just to be aware of. Let's take a look here at the bond yields and the strength of the dollar. Now, obviously, the political season in the United States here has begun, and I'm going to start with the dollar primarily because the dollar is just going right now. Now, of course, we have not broken over this high here that we made earlier in April for the year-to-date high on gold. So, we had that big push in April and a bit of a slowdown, but very nice uptrend here on the U.S. dollar over the last few weeks since about, the beginning of June. So very nice move up. And obviously with things happening in the political arena, I'm not going to get into it in this video. If you watched it, kudos to you. I didn't feel the need to because I already knew what was going to happen. And I was not disappointed from what I understand. So, but definitely the market and the dollar somewhat reacting to that a little bit with this nice push up here this month. Now, what's really interesting here is these bond yields really nice, starting to curve up on these 30-year bonds and as well as the 10-year yields starting to kind of come back up while the 2 years are holding really steady. Not much action there. So we're starting to see those longer term debt securities really starting to, maybe make up some ground here on the 2 years. So definitely something to keep an eye on if people start favoring longer term investments over the short term ones. And our yield curve actually goes back to a, standard yield curve. That would be very interesting to see because we've been inverted, I feel like, forever. I don't remember the last time that the yield curve wasn't inverted. Looks like it was back here in 2022. So it's been almost 2 years since we haven't had an inverted yield curve. So that is something to be aware of. So we're just definitely going to be keeping an eye on this going into this week. But again, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of action this week, but you never know. Let me silence the phone here real quick. There we go. So that doesn't bother us. All right, let's get back here and let's look at some key dates in the market this week because there are a few of them. And I kind of mentioned it earlier. I find it incredibly interesting that after the holiday on Thursday, we're going to be doing one of the larger announcements here, which of course is non-farm payrolls and unemployment on Friday. These have often been, very influential on the way that the market moves, and the fact that they're going to be announcing this after a holiday. I'm not going to play conspiracy theorist here because I'm sure that they, establish these dates beforehand, but I just find it rather interesting because even if the numbers are bad, market participation will typically be lower, so the impact on the market would be less. That's not to say that we won't see some volatility on Friday, but I just find it very interesting that they scheduled it then. We will note, of course, here on Tuesday, Powell's going to talk. You know my mantra. When Powell talks, the market moves. So expect some volatility on Tuesday. We're going to get the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee minutes are coming out as well on Wednesday. So definitely some big names, big things coming out here earlier in the week, but then all to be halted on Thursday. So again, I'm not planning to play conspiracy theorist or, tell you that, they're up to something, but it is interesting that these big things are happening right before the 4th of July. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we go into this week. Be very careful with your positioning. If, you're thinking about taking profits, all I'm going to say is no one ever lost money by taking profits. So just be aware of that we may have some volatility here on Tuesday and Wednesday. Friday, again, this will be interesting if this comes out. But yeah, I think the big dates this week is going to be Tuesday with Powell's talk and then FOMC minutes on Wednesday as well. Definitely going to be your bigger dates in the market this week. All right, is there any other economic stuff we need to talk about? How about earnings? Oh, wait, there's nothing. I'm sorry, but this is nothing. Nothing on Monday. Yeah, we've got 4 companies reporting. Okay, so nothing to worry about on earnings this week, but I did want to bring this up in case you are holding any of these companies. We got MSM. I'm just going to read the tickers off. RDUS, SLP, and STZ. We have those 4 companies reporting, and that's it. Probably the lightest earnings calendar we have seen to date, in my opinion. So yeah, not really anything going to be happening as far as earnings are concerned. And it's all going to be, in my opinion, on those big dates on Tuesday and Wednesday. Those are going to be the big numbers. Then, of course, unemployment, always a popular one. But yeah, I think it's going to be a bit muted more so than it usually is. Now, if you do have a question and you're here live and would like to go ahead and post that, please feel free. All right, while you all are typing your questions, I'm going to go ahead and take this question that I got sent to me directly before the webinar from Larry. So Larry, thank you again so much for sending your question in. Larry said he wanted me to take a look at RGS as a potential short. He would definitely like an update on it and some thoughts. All right, well, let's take a look at RGS here. I'm not too familiar with this one. Oh, well, looky there. That looks like a pump and dump to me. Regis Corporation. Yeah, this is some BS if I've ever seen it. Yeah, look at this. We've really been selling off hard. And yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm definitely, Larry, I see you made it. Yeah, I'm definitely hoping this thing dumps where it should be. And we definitely started seeing that on Friday. We definitely started to see that start to come down a bit. We did have a bit of a rebound towards the end of the day, but definitely came off of those highs at 25, almost $26 a share. And yeah, if you're in this one short, I wouldn't feel too worried just yet. I believe Riz is in this one. So it definitely, had a bit of a jump up here. Of course, we were hoping, after this first candle, we would get more selling action. We definitely got some more euphoria coming in, but look at that RSI. Holy cow. That is absolutely bonkers. So, just kind of be aware of that going into this. But yeah, I mean, depending on where your average is short, definitely this really looks like some pump and dump BS. What was the news on this? Is there anything? Not really. And even they mentioned the fact that it was starting to, slipping late afternoon. So let's see here. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too worried about this. This hard push off 26, we clearly can't get over that. And 25 is a big psychological level, I'll tell you that. And looks like there's actually some precedence there as far as technicals are concerned. We had like this hit here on 25. Very nice bounce off of that. So I wouldn't be too concerned on this one just yet if you're still holding short on this. Of course, always be careful with shorts. As I'll do the thing. Of course, the potential for loss on shorts is unlimited, but you're not going to hold it that long. Now, are you? That's the thing that always kills me when people are dogging on shorts because they're like, oh, your loss potential is unlimited. Yeah, if you're stupid enough to hold it short forever, then yes, it is. But of course, when you're holding short, sometimes you just got to let it go. You got to Elsa that thing. But I wouldn't be too concerned just yet. I understand that you're probably looking at an unrealized gain or loss at this point, probably a loss. and it kind of hurts. But just remember the fact that you have not lost any money until you actually cover. So for me personally, if I were in this short, I would still be okay holding on to it. Of course, we would love for it to get back here like around 8. That would be spectacular. May take a little bit longer than we had hoped, but still, I wouldn't be too super concerned about it. Yeah, I think we should hopefully see some selling. And typically, when you have securities like this and you have a short trading week, that actually favors your short position because there's going to be less market participation overall. And that means that the euphoria buying and stuff like that will be muted, and you may see a bit more of people dumping this. They've made their money, they're just going to sell out, and that just, looks for you. So, yeah, I definitely don't want a diamond hand a short, that's for sure. But yeah, that always tickles me to death when people are like, "Oh, the loss potential on a short's unlimited." Okay, sure. If you hold it to infinity, yes, that's true, but most people don't. Okay, Nikhil said he would like me to take a look at Target. I was actually looking at that myself, so let's take a peek at that real quick. But yeah, just to close up on RGS, I think right now you're okay. I wouldn't be too concerned unless we see a very strong bullish move over 26. And in truth, it really looks like 25 is kind of the level here for this one right now. So as long as we can hold below 25, I think you'll be just fine. All right, let's take a look at Target here. Target brand. Ooh, look at that lovely little bounce off of that 200 simple moving average. You got to love that. So yeah, I was actually eyeing Target. Sadly, I wasn't looking at it when it was down here because, man, that would have been a beautiful buy here around this 142 area. That being said, we're definitely curling up here. And, when you're going into, times of economic uncertainty, having those consumer staple companies like Target, like Walmart, things like that, these places that people are going to shop no matter, well, how good or how bad things are. It definitely gives you a sense of, security being in a, more defensive stock like this. So let's see here, 148. So obviously we kind of bounced here around 145. We had this lovely jump off of the 200 simple moving average. A little bit of a sell-off back here down to 145. Look at that hit touch point right there. That is beautiful. Just a little bit of curling up here as the market was having kind of a rough time on Friday. So honestly, this one looks pretty decent. Only concern here is the 50 crashing down and the fact that we are still technically in a downtrend. Let's just take a, oh, nope, that's the wrong line. Sorry about that. Here we go. So yeah, we are still technically in a downtrend on Target. So just be aware of that. If we see, and that, wow, that looks gorgeous. Look at that following that line there. So if we get a strong push over this, that could be a nice bullish sign for you on this security here in Target. And that hold of the 200 simple moving average, not once, but I'm going to call that a touch. 1, 2, 3, 4 times essentially. A lot of respect, a lot of buying in that area. If we can push over this line here this week and get some continuation, it definitely looks like a great place to get in if that's what you're looking to do. But yeah, as always, make sure you're following your risk levels and things like that, and kind of where you're at. All right, Axe has a couple questions. How do you see Bitcoin for a potential short if the inflation this July 11th shows higher than expected? You think commodities can keep going up while stock and crypto crash? That's a very good question, Axe. There's another one there, but let's take a look at good old Bitcoin. All right, let's get on here. So Bitcoin has been doing its thing lately. We kind of made up here to this new all-time high right around 74K, and we have not been able to get back there since. We came close here right around 72,000, but again, we didn't have it. So it looks like Bitcoin is kind of coming back here towards the 200 simple moving average. I will say that moving averages and technicals typically don't matter so much with cryptocurrency. It's a little bit crazier, as I think we all know. So I guess the question, if I'm really just kind of drilling down on your question here, do we feel that Bitcoin will start to sell off if we see more inflation? It's a very good possibility that that may happen. There's no way to know for certain, but obviously we've been on a bit of a downtrend here for Bitcoin for quite some time, since basically the beginning of the month. As the dollar starts ramping up, as we saw back here, towards the beginning of the month. We see the inverse happening here in Bitcoin as it's selling off. Um, a little bit of an inverse, correlation there, because if you think about it, if people are feeling more strength in the dollar, they're going to be putting less into crypto. So, obviously crypto is not something that we trade too frequently here in Elite. We have in the past, we haven't in quite some time. But man, 72K seems like a very, very hard wall for crypto right now, for Bitcoin especially. And, could it potentially go further? It could. This price action here, I'm not too keen on. The fact that we have just been kind of staying stable for the last couple days. That being said, of course, we did have a big sell off here, and especially a big sell off here on Monday. Look at that candle on Monday. Oof, that's a bleeding red there, but definitely a little bit of consolidation here. I would say, honestly, if you want to take a speculative short position and you have the ability to do so, that's definitely something you could consider. Um, there are definitely ways to do that. I don't recall, I haven't been in the crypto space for a long time. I don't know if you can actually short Bitcoin proper, because it's, not something that's typically shortable, but there are other things that you can short, such as Bitcoin ETFs and things like that. You could play with, not necessarily suggesting that you go ahead and do that, but that's and it's a strategy you can take. Would I short it here? Maybe if you feel that there's a lot of negative pressure or downward pressure on Bitcoin right now, and you want to take a starter position, it might not be a terrible spot to do it. This 60 area has been, let's see, let's look further back here. The great crypto crash. Okay, don't know why the printer decided to do its thing just there. So yeah, back here in 2021, when crypto was all the rage, before it became all the rage again, we've definitely been in this 60 area before. I wouldn't say it's like a super big technical level, but I mean, it's possible. If this were a stock and you're asking me, should I short it here? I would say no, because we're starting to run into the 200 simple moving average, and there's typically a lot of buying and selling that goes on there. We're not talking about a security. Okay. This is not a stock. This is cryptocurrency we're talking about. And crypto can do whatever the flip it wants. As you can see, there's really not a lot of respect for the moving averages. Sure, it taps them every once in a while, and people can say, oh, look, it's touching the moving averages. Yes, that will happen. And I'll also tell you that a broken clock is right twice a day. So, in general, movement in crypto is very difficult to predict, in my opinion. But if you do want to take a speculative short position here, you could. I would not let it run anywhere past 67. That's a pretty big range. And of course, the downside, there's a lot of potential downside. Once we get down here, kind of looking in this, let's say for here to start with, so we're looking at about 56K. And then next level is going to be about 52 and a half. And then somewhere around here, around 48. So if you think that you can get that, might be worth taking a look at. But yeah, me personally, I wouldn't take it, but that's me. And your risk tolerance may be different. You may have a different thesis than I do on crypto. But it would be an interesting spot to take it short, especially if we continue to see another leg down. Now, the next question was, what do I see RIVN for a long-term investment? That's RIVN, right? Yep, nailed it. Okay, RIVN. Look at this piece of garbage. Okay, so let's talk about the whole EV thing, right? Because that's basically what we're talking here. We've got Rivian, we've got Tesla, we've got all the other major auto manufacturers who are trying to get into that space, and we're going into a time of global uncertainty and what I would refer to as a bipolar world. If we're talking about things on the world stage, we're kind of seeing, two different sides separating themselves, and there is the potential for that conflict, we'll say. I'm not going to use the buzzwords here to not anger the YouTube algorithm, if you get my drift. But let's take a look here. So obviously what do we have here? What did this do? Okay, so not really anything going on here that I'm seeing. What was the news on this day that made it go so crazy? What's going on with Rivian Stock Friday? Now, it's not Friday that it happened. It happened on Wednesday. Let's just dig through here. I want to know what caused this gap up. If anybody knows in the chat, please feel free to go ahead and throw it in there. Let's see. Oh, is it this Volkswagen investment? Is that it? Could potentially be that. Again, this isn't one that I watch too much because I'm not too super high on this company. If you are, I mean, here's what I'll say. For a long-term investment, you don't necessarily want to look at the short-term technical analysis. Okay, so for long-term investment, we're wanting to dig more into the fundamentals of the company. You know, what's the management look like? What's the balance sheet look like? What's the potential market that they're trying to break into look like? Is this a sector that you think in the next 5 to 10 years is really going to take off? If that's the case, buying Rivian at 13 could be a huge, huge discount and a really cheap price. Am I saying it's going to go to the moon and be the next Tesla? I don't think so. That's just me personally. That's my personal opinion. But this move to me shows a lot of hesitation. And obviously, we had some buying going into this, but look at all this selling that went on here. I mean, we had this huge gap up, or in pre-market here on Wednesday, and then it just dumped. I mean, dumped all Wednesday, came back up here, tapped the 50, and then just dumped again on Friday. Now, of course, the market was red on Friday, so that is something to be aware of. But on Wednesday, we were still looking pretty, we are still inching upwards, and this just sold off hard. So that tells me there's a lot of people looking to offload positions that were in here or in here, and who just want out at this point. This is not exactly a chart of a company that gives me a lot of confidence for a long-term hold. Now, if you want to speculate on this, I wouldn't go in too big. If I were looking to get into this now and I wanted to, maybe invest whatever is comfortable for you for a starter position, right? That allows you the option to not be hurting too bad if things don't go your way. It could be an interesting place to do it, especially if you're planning on holding for several years and you really believe in what the company's doing and you think that they're going to be a leader in that space, that they've got new technology or something in the pipeline that's really going to help push them ahead of their competition, which is Tesla. Let's be honest here. Okay, let's call a spade a shovel. Will they be able to compete with Tesla in the future? Maybe they can. I don't know. Again, this isn't a company that I really follow all too much. I know of them, of course. I know what they do. They're into that EV space. I'll say that their truck looks a lot better than the Cybertruck. Feel free to roast me in the comments. I think the Cybertruck looks like a hot pile of garbage. It's like a 3-year-old designed a truck, and it's like what your 3-year-old brings home from like kindergarten or something like that, and you put it up on the fridge and you're like, oh, it looks so good, little Johnny. I'm so proud of you drawing that space truck. I think Elon basically took that picture off of the fridge and said, hey guys, I want you to design this. I don't know. For me personally, I hate the Cybertruck. I think it looks retarded. There, I said it. YouTube will kill me now because I said that, but I think it looks terrible. Okay, I'm just going to say I think it looks absolutely terrible. I have seen them in person and I am not impressed. The Rivian truck looks like a truck and it actually, looks pretty slick. I'll give them that much. Their design was a whole heck of a lot better than what Elon came up with the 4-year-old drawing. I did say 3 earlier, but we're upping it to 4-year-old. Okay, but yeah, this chart is not exactly confidence inspiring for a company that you want to hold long term. That's all I'm going to say because post IPO we came up here to bucks 179 and we have lost over 10x value at this point. I would just have a hard time buying and holding this. This kind of looks like another GameStop to me. Now, maybe that's how you roll with this. Maybe you get in here and they go crazy on some news and you're able to capture some profits and you don't diamond hand that like Roaring Kitty or anything like that. And you're able to, make some profit on it. I need to see some more upward momentum before I'm ready to take this long term because even here, back in 23, we got this move up to like 27. We couldn't hold it. And it just got, pushed back down. We came up here again to 24, pushed back down. I mean, this is in a long-term downtrend. That's just the truth. And I can only imagine what the short float is on this thing. But again, that could be a positive thing. If you're honest, if we do get like some GameStop type, action on this, that could be very profitable for you. Me personally, as a long term, I'm not going to be jumping on it. But if this fits your investment profile, and this is a company you believe in, and maybe you have some information, you've done the books, you've looked through the financials, and you're like, yeah, this company's solid. Maybe this is a great place to get in. For me personally, I'm not going to be buying 100 shares of this anytime soon. That's just me. But if it works for you, you rock and roll it, brother. That's all I'm going to say on that. Because the one thing I've come to understand, and we'll go ahead and close on this since I'm not seeing any other questions come in. There's a lot of different ways to make money in the market, and no matter what your strategy is, so long as you follow your strategy and you've done your research and you have a very strong feeling on the way a security is going to move, what's going to happen, or how it's going to behave, and you feel that that thesis makes a lot of sense, don't take what I say and feel like I'm trying to rain on your parade, because I haven't done the research that you've done on this, if you've done research. But if you are looking at something as a long-term hold, do make sure you're doing some of that research, checking out the numbers, making sure the company's financially sound and they're doing, what they need to be doing to position themselves in the future. Because, they're not every company's Tesla. We not everybody can do that. I mean, you look at other auto manufacturers that used to be flying high and now they're in the dumps. Not going to name any names here. But there you go. I mean, Ford versus GM. We can play that game if you want. Feel free to let me know down in the comments which you prefer, Ford or GM. But you look at GM here starting to move back up, and Ford is kind of in the crapper, for lack of a better term. Is there anything wrong with Ford? No. I mean, they're doing just fine. Financially, they're making money, billions of dollars every year. They're paying their dividends out to their investors. Some months are better than others. But stock wise, I mean, they're just in the almost sub $10 for a company that's so we've got a company here with a market capitalization of $50 billion, and it's $12 stock. I mean, is there anything wrong with Ford? No, they're making cars, they're doing okay. It may stand for fix or repair daily or first on race day. All depends on which you prefer. Okay. Yeah. So Axel was saying he's like, yeah, he's done some research on Rivian and he feels like it's a good price to buy. Then, if your research and your thesis, supports that, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. It's totally up to you. But yeah, I wouldn't bet the farm on it. That's all I'm going to say. Because there's a lot of other players in the game. And, the question is, will we have supply chain interruptions? Because the one thing about these EVs, you need that lithium. And if you don't have a good source of lithium and the price just keeps going up and up and up with supply issues, then it doesn't bode well for your business. So just be aware of that. Be aware that, this type of business has other forces acting on it outside of just, is the company financially sound? That's the big thing to remember. And if your research supports that, yeah, this is a good price to jump in, go for it, brother. I can't tell you that it's a bad idea, because you may be 100% right, and this thing may be at 40 in 2 years, and you're going to come back and be like, Chris, you were totally wrong. And you know what? I will be happy for you, because that's awesome. If you can capture a move like that, that would be spectacular. But yeah, I think that's the important thing to take away here, is to always do your own research. And it sounds like Axe has done that, and do your own research, make sure you're checking into things, and not just going off of what I say, what Riz says, or what anybody else on the internet says. Always do your own homework. Make sure you're checking those numbers out, because that's really what makes the big impact in your portfolio long term. So I want to thank all of our elite members for being out here. I guess I went on a little bit of a rant there at the end, but I do appreciate you all sticking with me. Of course, again, if you are watching this on the replay on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for me one more time. Would really appreciate it. It helps get this video out to more people so we can reach a larger audience. Really appreciate each and every one of our members here in Risley. You are all awesome. And you always come with such great questions. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Have an absolutely wonderful weekend or a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll see you in the market on Monday.